At this stage of life, a subtle but profound reversal takes place. The decades you have lived quietly rearrange your understanding of what matters. What once appeared urgent now feels incidental. What once demanded constant attention reveals itself as noise. The years have taught you, sometimes gently, sometimes painfully, that life was never merely about accumulation or applause. It was about formation, about who you became while pursuing what you thought you needed. Each decade peeled away illusion like bark from an old tree, exposing the grain beneath. You now recognize patterns where you once saw chaos. You see how certain struggles had to happen, how specific disappointments redirected you toward deeper truths. Success without meaning now appears hollow, and struggle without learning almost unthinkable. This revelation does not announce itself with fanfare. It settles quietly, like autumn light through a familiar window, illuminating what has always been there. Socrates once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." What the years have taught you is not merely to live, but to examine, to reflect, refine, and realign. In this season, life is no longer rushed past. It is understood. You understand now that many of your earlier pursuits were necessary, even when misguided. They taught contrast. They sharpened discernment. The revelation of this season is not regret, it is recognition. Recognition that every chapter, even the difficult ones, was shaping the reader you have become. You have lived long enough to know that wisdom cannot be rushed. It does not arrive through instruction alone, nor does it submit to shortcuts. Wisdom is earned through repetition, disappointment, endurance, and long reflection. It is forged slowly, like metal strengthened by repeated exposure to heat. The years gave you something no book or mentor could fully provide: perspective. You now see how moments connect across decades, how cause and consequence travel slowly, how patience often outperforms force. You understand that some answers only reveal themselves after waiting, and some truths only become visible when emotion cools. Isaac Newton observed, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." What you now realize is that your shoulders have become those shoulders, bearing not theories, but lived understanding that others can stand upon. Time did not merely pass. You were shaped by it. Every season left its mark. The gift of years is not what you gain materially, but who you became internally while gaining it. You learned restraint. You learned endurance. You learned the difference between what is loud and what is lasting. Like a seasoned craftsman, your hands now know what to do without haste. You no longer confuse speed with progress. You trust depth over display. This is the quiet power of years well lived. With the urgency of youth behind you and the clarity of experience before you, a rare opportunity emerges. You are no longer driven to prove yourself. You have nothing left to audition for. You are free to choose. Your decisions can now be guided by meaning rather than fear, contribution rather than comparison. This season allows deliberate action, measured, intentional, and aligned. You can invest energy where it truly matters and withdraw it from pursuits that once drained you unnecessarily. Viktor Frankl wrote, "When a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure." You have outgrown distraction. The years have refined your appetite. You now hunger for significance, not stimulation. Few reach this stage with awareness. Many remain trapped in old patterns long after their usefulness expires. But you see clearly now. You understand that true freedom is not the absence of responsibility, but the ability to choose the responsibilities that matter most. This is the season of discerned effort. Less motion, more momentum. Legacy is no longer an abstract idea. It is personal, tangible, alive. You no longer think of legacy as something that happens after you are gone. You recognize it as something shaped daily. through presence, guidance, and intention, whether through mentoring, creating, reconciling relationships, or finishing what was once postponed. You now understand that legacy is not about monument building, it is about transmission. What you have learned through decades of living is needed by those still climbing. Confucius taught, the strength of a nation derives from the integrity of the home. You now see that legacy often flows quietly, through example, values passed on, and wisdom shared across generations. Perhaps there are conversations yet to be had, stories yet to be told, or work yet to be completed, not for recognition, but for resolution. Legacy in this season is less about expansion and more about completion, bringing life full circle with intention and grace. Transition from climb to meaning. And so the climb gives way to meaning. The mountains you once scaled for achievement have led you to a different summit, one where the view is measured not by height, but by understanding. Napoleon Hill reminded us. What the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. In this season, belief is no longer about ambition, it is about purpose. Your mind now conceives not more but better. The question is no longer, how far can I go? It is, what will I leave behind that endures? You have lived long enough to know the answer is not found in speed, noise, or accumulation. It is found in wisdom applied, lessons shared, and a life brought to meaningful completion. This is not the end of your story. It is the chapter where everything finally makes sense. The deeper understanding, how perspective changes everything. With the wisdom of experience, life reveals its deeper architecture. What once appeared random now shows design. What once felt unfair now reveals instruction. You see clearly that every season had a purpose, even when that purpose was hidden at the time. The years of building taught discipline. The years of struggle taught humility. The years of success taught restraint. And the quieter years, those moments when the noise faded, taught truth. Perspective does not minimize hardship, it redeems it. You no longer ask, why did this happen to me? You ask, what did this shape in me? That shift alone separates experience from wisdom. You understand what the young cannot yet grasp, that meaning is not found in constant motion, but in alignment between values and actions, effort and intention, time and purpose. Marcus Aurelius reflected on this truth. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. With decades behind you, you see that obstacles were not detours. They were the road itself, refining judgment and strengthening character. This deeper understanding brings calm. You are less reactive, more rooted. Like a mountain that no longer fears storms, you stand steady because you know what endures. The harvest, what you've gathered from decades of living, this is harvest time. Not merely of achievements measured by titles or possessions, but of insight, gathered slowly across decades. You have harvested lessons about people, who can be trusted, who must be accepted as they are, and who teaches you patience simply by being themselves. You have learned timing, when to act, when to wait, and when waiting is the action. Like a seasoned craftsman, your hands now know what to do without haste. You do not rush decisions, because you have seen the cost of premature action. You understand that some outcomes ripen only after long seasons underground, unseen and uncelebrated. The harvest of your years includes discernment, emotional depth, and the ability to see beyond appearances. You recognize sincerity without words and detect false urgency when it appears. These are not minor gains, they are rare assets. Albert Einstein once observed, wisdom is not a product of schooling, but of the lifelong attempt to acquire it. Your harvest proves this truth. What you now possess was earned through living, through errors corrected, patience practiced, and insight paid for with time. This harvest is not meant to be stored away. Grain hoarded spoils. Wisdom shared multiplies. The contribution, how experience serves a greater purpose. The world does not need you to be louder, it needs you to be truer. Your experience carries authority precisely because it was earned. You have no need to exaggerate or persuade aggressively. Your words hold weight because they are anchored in reality. Younger generations search for direction without maps. They navigate a world of speed and noise, often mistaking motion for progress. You carry maps drawn from lived terrain, maps that include mistakes, recoveries, recalibrations, and second chances. When you speak, you do not theorize, you testify. Your contribution may not come from a podium. It may come across a kitchen table, in a quiet conversation, through example rather than instruction. Sometimes your greatest influence is not what you say, but what you refuse to panic about. Confucius understood this responsibility. Wisdom, compassion, and courage are the three universally recognized moral qualities. You embody these not as ideals but as practiced virtues, shaped through years of consequence and reflection. Wisdom, unshared, is unfinished work. This season invites you not to withdraw, but to contribute with intention, selectively, meaningfully, and without the need for applause. Completion does not mean closing doors. It means bringing life full circle. In this season, loose threads begin asking for attention. Old dreams may return, not with urgency, but with maturity. They no longer demand sacrifice of everything else. They ask for integration. Relationships may seek resolution. Words once withheld may finally find their time. Forgiveness long delayed may feel less like surrender and more like release. Work, too, changes shape. It may seek refinement rather than expansion, depth instead of breadth. Wholeness emerges when nothing essential is left unexamined. You understand now that completion is an inner state, not an external checklist. It is the quiet assurance that your life, taken as a whole, makes sense. Socrates offered a timeless challenge: know thyself. After decades of roles and responsibilities, this season allows you to meet yourself honestly, not as who you were expected to be, but as who you truly are. This is not starting over. It is integrating everything you have been into something coherent, grounded, and complete. You have earned the right to choose what endures. Legacy is no longer accidental, it is intentional. You understand that what lasts is rarely what was loudest, fastest, or most visible. What lasts is what was consistent, principled, and human. Legacy is shaped now through presence, being fully where you are, through thoughtful action, doing fewer things but doing them well, and through the courage to pass on what matters most, even when it is inconvenient or unpopular. The decades behind you have prepared you for this responsibility. You have seen cycles repeat. You have watched trends rise and fall. You know what survives time's testing. This season of life is not about fading, it is about distilling, reducing life to its essential truths and offering them freely. Napoleon Hill wrote with conviction, "A man's true character is revealed by what he does when no one is watching." Your legacy is being shaped now in these unseen moments, through integrity practiced quietly and wisdom offered without condition. What remains when distilled is powerful, and what you offer from this place, if given generously, will outlive you in ways achievement never could. This is the chapter where understanding becomes service, harvest becomes offering, and a life well lived becomes a life that continues to live through others.